So it feels good when you go through a certain topic or concept and you understand it end to end. And today is one such day where I went through Amazon Bedrock Agentcore Gateway concepts and was able to understand how um, it has been implemented within AWS, right? And this is what I was expecting when first MCP came, when Anthropic released MCP. I was expecting that the cloud providers will very soon offer a managed MCP server concept. And Amazon Bedrock Agent Core Gateway is exactly that, right? To be able to implement a secure MCP server in a managed way so that it becomes easier for um, developing agents with MCP, and you don't have to manage a lot of things, right? And that is what we'll go through in this recording. Whatever I have understood by going through the documentation, writing some code based on the documentation, that is what I will share, right? Now, the core concepts of Amazon Bedrock Agent Core are this, right? So there is a gateway component. So the gateway acts like a MCP server. So gateway is that managed MCP server, which provides a single access point for an agent to interact with its tools, right? The gateway connects to something called gateway target, right? The targets are actually a, the actual tool logic, right? It can be an API or a Lambda function that the gateway exposes as a tool to an agent, right? So the targets can be a Lambda function, OpenAPI specifications, Smithy models, or other tool definitions. Then you have the Agent Core Gateway Authorizer. This is the inbound authentication. So MCP supports OAuth, right? So each gateway must have an attached OAuth authorizer. So this Agent Core Gateway Authorizer authorizes someone to use the MCP server. So basically, if you don't have OAuth authorization server, so we can create using Cognito. We'll see that when I go to the programming part of it. But this Agent Core Gateway Authorizer, which is also called inbound authentication, authenticates the user. It can be an agent, it can be any software program. Right? Agent finally is a software program to use the gateway, right? And then the agent core credential provider. So initial credential provider is kind of the outbound authentication. So when a gateway makes calls to your APIs or Lambda function, it must use credentials to access those functionalities, right? So for example, if I have a Lambda, I need the Lambda IAM role, right? So the outbound authentication is happening through an IAM. If it's an external API, I might need the API key, or might need to authenticate myself through a OAuth provider, right? That is this agent core credential provider, which is the outbound uh, authentication type, right? And I have a picture that I've drawn. I'll show it soon. And there are three types of tools that the gateway supports. One is Open API specification itself. It transforms existing REST APIs into MCP compatible tools. It supports Lambda functions. It connects Lambda functions as tools, allowing you to implement custom business logic in your preferred programming language. And the third one is the Smithy models. You use Smithy models to define your API interfaces and generate MCP compatible tools, right? Now, the concept of uh, Bedrock Agent Core Gateway, if I have to draw it, it looks like this. Let's say there is a software program, right? It can be an agent program, it can be a non-agent program. It's agents are nothing but at the end of the day are software programs, right? So let's say it's a software program, let's say it's an agent logic, right? The first thing for the agent or the software program to get access to the tools exposed by gateway is the first thing it needs to do is need to authenticate itself with an inbound authentication mechanism. Um, so AWS provides for this, like you can use Cognito to do this or any external authenticator provider like IDP providers like Okta and all, right? So in my, when I show the program, I used Cognito. So from Cognito, when I create the user pool, the first step is to get a token generated, right? This token is what the software program uses to get authenticated to the gateway, right? So the get into a gateway then says, okay, you are an authorized user, you can use me, but now the gateway uses a outbound authentication mechanism. The outbound authentication mechanism can be an IAM role or can be an OAuth client or an API key, right? This outbound authentication finally gives access to the targets, which are the tools. It can be an AWS Lambda, it can be external APIs or tools, right? So the gateway uh, then uses the outbound authentication to authenticate the invocation of the tools. And once that authentication is done, then the gateway um, uh, executes or invokes the tool, gets the result, and gives it back to the software program. We'll now write some program to create each component of this, right? So first, let me go to my uh, Python program and let me open the Bedrock thing. Also, first, let's go to Cognito, right? So right now, I don't have any user pools created. Uh, AWS Bedrock Agentcore Starter Toolkit has given one function, create OAuth authorizer with Cognito, through which it abstracted the creation of Cognito pool and all, right? You can, uh, you don't need to use it, but if you want to create your own user pool, right, you can do it. But this, and in actual, in an organizational production, you might be creating your own pool. But to understand the concept of uh, creation of the Cognito, attaching it to the gateway and all, this is very easy, right? It's a starter kit, right? So if you actually go into this particular function that they have provided, so if I, oops, my system has become very slow. Okay, so if I go into this particular uh, function, this abstracts the creation of the entire Cognito user pool and pool, right? So we'll not go through this code, but what I'll do is I will run this code now. So I'm creating a gateway client in the region US West 2, and I'm creating uh, the with the gateway name is my gateway, right? So let me run this, right? My system is running low on resources. So I need to increase the memory. So it has started creating the Cognito resource, right? So it created a user pool. This created the domain, right? Waiting for the domain to be available. Domain is active now. Waiting for DNS propagation of domain, right? So once that this is created, um, I'll get the Cognito result back as a JSON payload. We will store that payload. If I go back to go back here, I should see the user pool now getting created. It is, I think it is still getting created. Yeah, it is created now, but it is still waiting for the DNS propagation of domain. Right? So here, if I click on this, I have the user pool ID, I have the client ID somewhere. Okay, I have the token signing URL. I have the ARN, right? Okay, so finally it got created, right? This cognitive result, this I'll store because I'll be using it later when I create the gateway, right? So right now I have only, so I'll just put it here. Right? So here I have the authorizer configure, right? This is something that I'll later use to create the gateway, right? So what we have done so far is we have created the cognito user pool, right? Now I will create the gateway, right? So to create the gateway, MCP gateway, I need to give the cognito result. So first I create the client, gateway client, and my cognito result, I'll copy this, right, which just got created, and I will copy it here. Oops. Right, I copied this, which which I got from Cognito, which has the client info, client secret, client ID. I'll delete it, so and that's why I'm showing it right now. So I have the client ID, client secret, right? User pool name, region, the token endpoint, everything, right? That is what I'm giving as the Cognito results. Now, when I create the gateway, I'm using the create MCP gateway function that is part of the SDK, right? I'm giving the gateway name. The role ARN, if I don't give any, it will create one for me. But in actual production, you might want to create your own role. So after it is created, we'll go to the role also and see how it creates a role for us. Authorizer config is that this result, right, that I gave, right? It takes the uh, authorization config, right? This entire JSON, it takes it, right? And enable semantic search equal to true. So this is another good feature within Gateway, right? So when you give a tool description, it uses semantic search to identify which is the most appropriate tool to use, right? So with this, I will create the gateway, and the next one I'm creating is a Lambda target. So after I create the gateway, the Lambda target is where again I'm using the function create MCP gateway target from the SDK. Gateway, this is the output of the creation of the gateway, right? Let me print the gateway also so that we see what is there here, right? And then after the gateway, right? So the name, if I can give a name to the target, right? If I don't, it will be generated for me. The target type by default is Lambda, right? The target payload, I can provide the target payload for a Lambda, right? So it is nothing but the tool specification, right? So target payload is nothing but a tool specification. If I don't give it here, it just since it's showing the concept, it will create a example Lambda for me with that payload, right? But the payload will look like this, right? So if I go to the target part, adding Lambda target, right? Your payload should look like this. This is the tool schema. If you are familiar with tool calling, right? Tool schema, where you will give the name of the tool, the properties, basically what parameters the tool takes, right? And provided you probably already have a Lambda program created, right, to get the weather, the ARN of that Lambda, right? This is what this payload is what you are giving to this function here, to the target payload here, right? So that it can convert your Lambda to a MCP compatible tool. For the purpose of this demonstration, I am not going to give a payload. It will automatically generate for me, right? This is just an example lambda it will create. But the purpose of this step is, if you have an existing lambda, when you give the target payload like this, it is converting your lambda to a to MCP compatible tool, right? Credentials, I'll not put in the credentials you need if you are if your target type is not lambda, if the target type is and let's an API call, right? So if I go to this particular function, you'll see that there are three types of target, right? Uh, so my computer has become extremely slow. So if you see the target type, you can have Open API schema, you can have Smithy model, but it defaults to Lambda. So either Lambda, Open API schema, or Smithy model, right? So the credential is required if you are using the target type as an Open API schema, where you are trying to um, invoke an external API or a tool, right? So then you need to know the API key of that tool or the OAuth configuration of that tool, right? That is what you would give, right? But since we are using Lambda, which is this here, right? We don't have to give it. Um, we are accessing the outbound authentication is happening through an IAM role, right? And that is what I was telling, that if I would have a existing Lambda, I would have given that Lambda ARN here, right? And the Lambda, uh, the details of the tool, right? How the tool specification, right, would give it like this, right? So with this, if I now run this, it will do two things. It will create a gateway for me, and we'll see in the Bedrock agent core, right? And it will create a Lambda for me as well, right? In in actual production, you will tell what the Lambda specification is, right? You will not let it create the Lambda for you. But this is just a demonstration. So let me run this. So now when I ran this, what it is going to do is, it is going to create the gateway for me. It is going to create a Lambda, right? So this is the output from the gateway, right? This is the output from the gateway. And here, um, yeah, so this out, there is a gateway ID, right? It has created it now. Yeah, this is the gateway URL, right? That it has created, right? See this MCP endpoint. Exactly like if you create your own existing MCP, there also the endpoint will be MCP, right? This is where it is creating an MCP compatible gateway. And next it is adding the target to it, right? So it created a Lambda execution role, right? And then created the target. Let's go to AWS now, see what it has done. So if I go to my AWS account, now you will see, if I go to Bedrock Agent Core, I should see a gateway created. This is the gateway that got created. It has a target. This is the target. It created the target, test target. And this target, this is the Lambda it has created, right? So if I go to the Lambda, I should see this function has been created. Ideally, as I'm again reiterating it, that you probably you will already have a Lambda, and that Lambda you will uh, map it in the target using the payload thing that I just mentioned. So if I go to Lambda now, you will see it has created a test Lambda. Uh, right, so this is the one. It has created a Lambda function, right, with the weather tool. So if so, what it does, it gets a tool name. If the tool name is get weather, it runs the logic of the get weather tool. If the question is related to get time, it runs the logic of the get time tool, right? Else it does everything. If you have a different tool, you'll have that tool name here, the logic of the what the tool is, right? If you are using Lambda as a target, right? So it did this. The other thing that it did is it created some roles also, right? So the roles are, so it created an agent core gateway execution role, right? And here it also created a policy for me, right? A gateway policy where it gave access to Bedrock Agent Core, right? And Lambda invoke access function. In production, I would make it more constrained, right? Using the list privilege principles. But then I'll still need it to have agent core access, and I can the invoke access, I can restrict it to particular Lambda. But it created this for me. It created S3 read access, Dynamo DB full access. This I think is for the vector search, because when it does the semantic search, right? Because I made semantic search true, the tool descriptions are embedded in um, probably put in here, right? So this is the part I still need to explore why it actually added DynamoDB S3, but I'm almost 100% sure that this is for the vector matching, right? So it created this role. It created a Lambda role also, right? This is the Lambda role, Lambda execution role, right? Um, to create, right, log group, right? When I created the Lambda role, right? So what we did so far is we created the cognito part, we created the gateway, and we attached the gateway with a AWS Lambda target, right? Now we'll see how we access it. Now the interaction part, right? MCP interaction part. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that the so think about this MCP interaction is my software program now, right? So I need to give it the client ID. So my client ID that I created while creating the Cognito pool is this. This is my client ID, right? I need the client secret, which is this. This I got when I created the inbound authentication, the Cognito user pool, right? So this is my client secret, and my token URL is this token URL endpoint, right? So with the client ID and the client secret, if I call this token URL, I'll get a access token through which I will authenticate to the gateway, right? That is what I'm doing here now. Fetch access token, right? Where I'm saying that I'm giving the token URL of my Cognito, right? I'm giving the what type of grant types I need. I'm passing the client ID, client secret, right? And then I am returning the access token. So every time a software program, which can be a syntactic Python program or a semantic program agent using, it can be a strands agent, it can be a LangGraph, LangChain agent, right? When this software program is trying to connect to the gateway, it is fetching the access token. This is how I get the access token. I use Cognito. If I use Okta, I'll have Okta related logic here to get the access token, right? After I get the access token, then you remember when he created the gateway, it gave me the gateway URL. This is the gateway URL. Let me actually get the gateway URL again, because this was from the previous one. The gateway URL is this, right? This is my gateway URL. This is the MCP server, right? Oops, yeah, okay, let me copy this. This is the gateway URL. Let me copy it here. Now I should be able to see this gateway URL, and I did not check it earlier. In my gateway also, let me go to agent core. And here also I should see under the gateway when it got created, there should be a gateway resource URL. Yes, this is the gateway URL, right? This is what I am giving it now. I'm fetching the access token, the logic that I just showed above, right? Um, oops. Yeah, the fetch token access, right? This is the logic, fetch token access logic, right? So that is what I am. Oops, my system is very slow. So this is what I am doing now. I'm fetching the access token. With that access token now, I'm calling the list tool function, right? This will give me all the tools that are available, that are exposed by this gate URL. If I go to the list tool that I created, right, you'll see here it passes the gateway URL, passes the access token, right, and it passes the access token from the Cognito, right, and it will return me all the tools that are exposed by that. Now, to when I call the tool again, I'll so in this case, since it's a Lambda, it will use the Lambda ARN and the role, but in other cases, like if it's an external API, it will use an API key or an OAuth ID, right? So if I run this now, MCP interactions, I'll see that it provides me with the list of tools now that are exposed by that particular MCP server. See this? So the tool is, so it automatically created that tool, right? So it uh, description of the tool is a special tool that returns a trimmed down list of tools given a context. Use this tool only when there are many tools available and you want to get subset that matches the provided context, right? So I have get time for a time zone. That is one tool that I had. Get weather for a location. That is another. That is the other tool that I had, right? So this is the schema that I get back when I do the list tool. This is what now I can give to the agent and say, agent, based on the prompt, decide which tool to use, right? Then it can take that particular tool, right, with the properties of the tool and execute that tool. Right? In my next recording, I'll show how to call the tool once you get the tool using um, the list tool method, like how you can use a strands agent to do this list tool call and then determine the relevant tool and then use it. That's it for this recording. Thank you.